Hi, I'm Desiree Miller, and today I'm going to be talking about my presentation over autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. We're going to talk about ways to understand it, what it looks like in your classroom, and how you can respond as a teacher, and what we need to do as teachers to be successful with students that have autism. So, we're going to be talking about the characteristics of students with autism, including their social relationships, how they communicate, what we can provide to them in the classroom, the diversity of ASD. Not all ASD students are the same, just like all your students that are in the gen ed are not the same. Neither are these students, and there's many different variations of this disorder. Not all of them look the same. There is severe autism as well as students that are not as severe as others. So we need to know our students. So we need to know what type of ASD they have, what level that looks like for them, and what they can handle and not handle, their interest in managing their stress. And also, we're going to talk about instructional supports for these students in the classroom, how we need to respond to behavior, foster their social interactions with their fellow peers, and how communication plays a key role in their success in the classroom. So let's start with social relationships. This is an area of challenge for most students with autism. Building relationships with peers, and not only their peers, but with other teachers, can become very stressful for them, as well as other students, because they do not know how to respond to them. And it is our jobs as educators to understand the basis of their social relationship skills. So most of the time, they're uninterested in having social relationships with other peers. You'll notice that they do resist that human contact, and that they do have a difficulty in learning social cues from other students. So there's just no interest there for them to socially interact with their peers or their teacher for that matter. They do not see others as socially connecting with them. So we have to teach them the social connecting skills and understanding perspectives of others. They most of the time see their own perspective, not willing to view others' opinions, view others' perspectives on different aspects within the classroom. So we need to be mindful of that, because social isolation is something that they are challenged with in the classroom. Also, I know we talk about eye contact and how that is a sign of respect. Whenever you talk to an adult or talk to another person, we look at them. Not all students with autism have this capability, so we need to be mindful of that, and what your expectations are as a teacher if you do get a student that does struggle with maintaining eye contact or physical touch. The next thing we're going to talk about is communication. This is huge with students with autism. We need to understand that they do not have traditional responses to you as a teacher, to other students in the classroom. In fact, some students may not only have a delayed speech, but they may be nonverbal altogether. And how will we teach students that are nonverbal? How will we educate and help those students gain social skills when communication is such a huge role in building and fostering those relationships? Well, there's many other things that we can do, and we're going to talk about some of those strategies of how we can help students express themselves if they are nonverbal and have autism in your classroom. And this basically just means that if we are unable to figure out the strategies to use for communication, we will see an increase in behaviors. So we will talk about that a little bit more as well. Some of the student interests, we kind of need to think about this, that students with autism have a very specific interest. Most of them have specific things that they enjoy, that they like, and anything else to them doesn't really matter. So we can use this, though, as a teacher. It is a huge tool for you to use. It encourages them, it pushes them, it motivates them. So their interest may seem like a hurdle for you as an educator, but really it is a tool to use at your benefit, because once you figure out what a student is interested in, you can push them to do challenging things, to interact more, because they want to get to that interest level of their own, because they are so mindful of themselves and not others. They want to get to where they can have time to do what they're interested in. So remember to look at that in a positive light, not in a negative. Another thing is student stress. We want to delay this as much as possible. We want students to be regulated in the classroom. We don't want them deregulated or de-escalated. We don't want them to feel so much stress that they shut down, that they maybe have outbursts within the classroom. It's all about how we respond to their stress, though. And I think that we see stress across the board in the classroom, but it's even more heightened with a student with autism. They may feel dysregulated when they're dealing with a new routine or schedule, or they have a noise that they don't like. You may see some of those repetitive behaviors, as in rocking or tapping, or we may see the stimming of a student with autism. I have had experience with students with autism throughout my teaching career. I have taught special education in the preschool level, 3, 4, 5, and I have also taught transitional classrooms as well as 4th grade. And now I'm in 2nd grade. So I have a history with students with autism in my classroom. And I will tell you that this is a way for them to to become regulated, to de-escalate, is some of those routines that they do, those repetitive behaviors. And so we need to be mindful of that and give them the time to regulate themselves. But we also need to look at these situations as an opportunity to teach students how to deal with their stress. So when you have a student that becomes, dysregulated in the classroom and they're having all these heightened emotions, and there might be yelling or running or screaming or any of those that you might see, think to yourself, okay, this is an opportunity for me to teach them the skills that they need. Don't look at it in the other light. And I used to look at it as, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do. I felt overwhelmed myself, and that's not the right reaction. We can control our own selves. We cannot control that student, but we can control us. And we need to start having a different mindset. When these moments occur, we need to look at them as educating moments to these students, not while they're dysregulated, because nobody's learning when they're upset, but when they finally come back to that baseline, which could take 15 to 30 minutes, there's our moment to step in and say, okay, what did we learn from this? And we need to be mindful that this is a learning experience. Even though it seems like a negative, disruptive behavior, it is an opportunity for them to learn. So always remember that as an educator. As I said, there is a lot of diversity with students with ASD. It does not provide you with their strengths and their needs as an educator. We've got to figure out what do they have a significant intellectual disability? Do they have other needs that are facial, like they don't understand facial expressions? Maybe they don't understand others' perspectives. Maybe they have trouble with connecting with others and making friends. There's a wide diversity there when it comes to ASD, and many variations, all the way from mild to severe. So we can't treat it like a single disorder. It definitely has variations of ASD, so we need to know that as a teacher. Also, responding to behavior. This is where we're going to dive a little deeper into that behavior when things become stressful, when they become overwhelmed. How are we going to respond as a teacher? And so we need to be understanding of previous experiences with a student by talking to previous teachers, by talking to family. They're our greatest connection to this student. We need to be able to provide a routine to them. They need to have structure. They thrive with the same schedule over and over again, that routine. In fact, I had a student that was in 4th grade that we developed a visual schedule for them, and they had a character with their face, their own picture on it, and they got to move themselves as the day went along, and it really helped them understand that every day looks the same. I know that I may be upset right now, but we're going to move to the next thing, and it helped them understand and have control over their day. It is okay for us as teachers not to have control of everything. It's even more important to understand that when you have a child with autism. You need to let them have some control of their day. They need that to be successful, and you need to be willing to let go and provide that as an educator. They need clear procedures, they need clear routines, but they also need consistency. So if they're not following the procedures, if they're not following the routine, we need to push that they must by having those set like there's everything has consequences, whether those are good consequences or bad consequences. They already know that you are firm. There is no wavering. It is consistent. This is what is happening in our classroom. And that right there, even though there might be some struggle at the beginning and there is that growing period, when we learn something new, we're all growing. There's a struggle and there's challenges, but pretty soon you got to get through that hard to get to the easy. And what I have told my students is it's not getting easier, you're getting better. It's not that it's not hard anymore. You're just getting better at it. So we need to let them understand that they have successes and really celebrate their successes in the classroom. And we can use different things for communication, kind of talking to that behavior. If we're seeing communication is causing a behavior, we need to be able to provide them with visuals, social stories to help them understand why there are those behaviors that are happening. What can I do? Can I provide them with a quiet area that they can go to and feel safe and secure in? That is something that we need to be able to provide to them as educators. Let me go back. Fostering social interactions. We need to understand, recognize when they're becoming dysregulated. Build that foundational relationship, know what they're interested in, and use that as a tool for you to provide experiences for them to understand classroom etiquette, show them through other students interacting together, not only social stories, but make a play. When we were in preschool, we used to act out plays, and the kids got to play a part in how we would socially interact with each other and what that proper etiquette looks like. And I want those students to not focus on the yesterdays. Maybe we had a bad day yesterday. We're going to focus on today and tomorrow. We're not going to focus on yesterday because we can't control what happened yesterday, but we are in control of what can happen today. Communication, I said we were going to dive into this more. Definitely wide variety of strategies, from sign language to pictures to videos to using communication devices, letting them do text to speech, having read alouds provided for them, using peer modeling. I love peer modeling. I think it's wonderful, especially if you have a student with autism that latches on to another student in your classroom and having them model the behavior for them. Oh, that can be such a key implementation of your for your teaching as an educator, because some students tend to learn from other students better than they can learn from you. So remember that you can use that as a tool too. If they latch on to somebody or they have a peer that they really relate to, use them as a model for them. That can be very helpful in the classroom. So I think I've hit most of my project that I had kind of thought about as a teacher and how it could help and what strategies you might use or how to look at things differently. But regardless of the severity of ASD, it begins with that foundation of relationship, not only with the student, but with the family. You taking the time to talk to their previous teacher. It is important for you. And if you do the groundwork for this, you will find more success with this student all year long. You will find that your heart has now become easy yourself. So I hope this information provides you with an insight into autism and helps you realize that there are some beautiful moments and some of these students that struggle the most in your classroom grow the most. So when you see that growth as a teacher, whether that's socially or educationally, when you see the growth, it just makes your heart feel warm and makes you feel purposeful. And that is our job as teachers, is to help these students grow, not just as academics, but also as humans. We want them to be able to interact with people. We want them to grow and to understand the world around them. And that's our job. So we want to just foster these children, include these children, and reinforce their value within the classroom and let them know that they are just as an important piece to that classroom as everyone else. And by doing that, you're going to let them realize that they are no different than anyone else in the classroom. And that's what's wonderful, is you need to make them feel that their classroom norms are just, and the expectations and opportunities are just the same as the other students in their classroom. So thank you for listening, and I hope that this was helpful, and I hope you guys have a wonderful spring break. Bye.